how's it going? I'm Josh. Yeah, I'm just here to share my story on sobriety. I'm 11 months sober, and I got sober when I turned 23. I'm 24 now. Um, yeah, so I'm just gonna share how I got to that point and how I've survived staying sober for a longer period of time than I ever have in my life since I started drinking. Um, yeah, so I started drinking, or I really had my first drink when I was probably like after my first communion. I think that's like kind of a marker for a lot of events in my life, was my first communion. Um, my grandparents lived, my grandfather was at Flag Use 4. He was a sailor in the U.S. Navy. He was a pilot. Um, they lived like an hour away, so we'd only see them on the weekends really, or like holidays, or like sleepovers. But it was kind of like a tradition that when we go over on the weekends, we did this my whole life until they passed away, was we'd come through the door. I'd run straight to the sunroom to go see my grandfather because he was kind of like my hero growing up, and I really looked up to him, and I loved just being with him. But he always was sipping like a glass of wine. He enjoyed wine, and he would let us, like the grandkids, have a sip. And I always wanted more. I always craved a lot more than that first sip because I just called it like being crazy when I was a kid. I was later diagnosed with ADHD, so maybe that's what it is. But yeah, so I used to have a couple sips. Never got drunk, obviously, and I would try and go for more. And he would say, "No, you're done. You're done." Something like that. So that's what it started, and then obviously late middle school, early high school is when everyone starts experimenting with marijuana and drinking and stuff, and those become a little bit more plentiful and accessible to people, and they came so for me. So we moved my freshman year of high school, and at that time was really rough in my life. I had lost that grandfather a couple years earlier, and that was really earth-shattering for me. It really shocked my foundation. And then I lost, I think, my grandma that freshman year as well. And I also lost my uncle tragically, who I saw 2 weeks before, to a motorcycle accident. So I was really hurt, really confused. I was starting a new school. We had moved across town into a new house. And one of the only positives I saw in my life was that we had a huge bar in our backyard. We have like a huge tiki bar. It's really unique. I've never really seen this at any other house. But yeah, we have a huge tiki bar in our backyard. And my dad was drinking a lot at that time too, especially since he lost his parents. So I always had Irish whiskey around the house. And also, like, just growing up in a New England Catholic Irish family, if you will, drinking's a big thing. There's always beer, there's always liquor, there's always people getting loud and excited, and it's a very lively culture, and it's something I love. I love like people enjoying themselves and being loud and being social. So yeah, I took that to cope with a lot of the things I was dealing with all the changes in my life, with all the loss in my life, and not knowing who I was. And I started drinking whenever I got the chance, like to blackout drunk. Pretty much every time I was home alone, which was a lot because I wasn't playing sports. I had suffered a couple injuries. I didn't break my neck, but I fractured C4 and C5 in my spine in 8th grade. And I had a really serious concussion. I was out for a couple months, and yeah, so I was home a lot, and there was always liquor, and I could always, like, take a couple swigs, and I was obviously a lightweight at that age. I was super skinny, and I was a little bit shorter. So I would drink till I passed out, or my friends always had weed, so we'd always smoke weed, and I'd smoke till I couldn't open my eyes anymore and fall asleep or something. Yes, that's really where it began. And I just lived like this spiritually bankrupt. Yeah, that's it. No, that's it. Okay, I'm just too nervous, and bear with me here. Hopefully this isn't too long, or I don't make too many mess ups. But yeah, spiritually bankrupt. Just didn't know how to deal with my problems other than, being that guy, being the drunk, being the kid who's always stoned. And that I got like a lot of validation from that. Like a lot of my friends thought it was funny. And especially with the whole culture from like 2015 to 2019, especially with like SoundCloud music going up, a lot of rap influence, right? Everyone's talking about like recreational and prescription drugs as a way to be cool and a way to get women and like get validation and stuff. And I really dove into that culture because it kind of appealed to that side of me that was like always wanting to, have fun and be crazy and have no regard for anything. But yeah, so I kind of, outside of my addiction, I would say I skated by. I think I ended with like a 3.0. I got into a decent enough school, St. Michael's College up in Burlington, Vermont. I went up there, and my roommate, he pretty much had anything you could want. He got me like a couple bottles. Like the first week we were there, I was like, dude, I need something. Got me a couple bottles, so I was pounding those MFers. I think I finished my first bottle in a week, which is a little bit crazy. Yeah, and I also I guess back in high school, I was selling cards, and I was known for that. Like I was the guy who had weed, or the guy who could get you like something else. And I'm not gonna go too deep into that because, God forbid, I don't want anyone watching in my own life to like know what I was doing. But yeah, I wasn't a good guy. But there was a part of me that wanted to break free from all this and kind of live the values that my family does have of like service, patriotism, I'd say, religion, Catholicism. Those things meant a lot to me. But when you're in an addiction, your addiction has the final say. But thankfully I was in control enough to where I could pursue different opportunities, and I became a volunteer firefighter, and that was really cool. I got to, be a firefighter and experience that life and be of service to people and make an impact in people's lives, learn how to do different things, really challenge myself to be better and to like push through any obstacle. So like physically, I could like do any task I like set my mind to, I think, unless it was like totally unreasonable for any human, I think. But anyway, I did that, and it kind of gave me like some false hope, right, that I could do anything. And then COVID hit. My world was shaken, and I was someone who was never like a really good student, unlike my siblings who are amazing students, and my little sister who like went to Notre Dame and was an honor student. Now she's a teacher. Like, yeah, great student. So I always felt lacking in that field. But yeah, so I dropped out of school. I left the fire department. So I really dove into my religion as the thing that gave me meaning in life. And I wanted to become a priest because I noticed like priests were helping a lot of people with a lot of the deeper issues other than just like medical care. Because I think that was really what the pandemic taught us as a society, was like health, like physical health issues are a big thing, and like obviously necessary to survival. But if you have those covered, you could still live like terribly, especially like with your mental health and your spiritual health. And in a moment of intense community suffering, people often turn to God, and that's what I did, especially growing up as like a Roman Catholic, a devout Roman Catholic. I was an altar boy. I actually wanted to be a priest growing up too, oddly enough. So I really dove in on that. I said, I have nothing to lose. I'm going to go try and be a priest. And so I got to have the opportunity to work with the Capuchin Franciscans a lot, and got to serve people through that ministry. all the while still drinking a lot, still getting blackout drunk, having horrible Catholic guilt, going to confession, going to mass, doing it the next day. And that's really kind of when the addiction started to progress, like drinking against your own will, and like also my awareness of it. But I pushed it aside because like I was too young to be an alcoholic. I guess it is probably a good thing to note. I do have alcoholics in my family history. Obviously, like being an Irish Catholic American or whatever, there's got to be like numerous ancestors from the past who were like alcoholics and probably died from alcoholism, I'm guessing. Maybe that's just like racist or xenophobic, but it's probably true. Yeah, just look at the history. But yeah, the guy I'm named after, my great-grandfather, my mother's side, James Walton, he was a doctor out in Southern California, where my family's from, out there. And he was really successful, but he died from alcoholism. I think it was like liver cancer, which was produced by alcoholism. So I kind of find that funny, that the man I'm named after has like the disease that's defined my life as well. Not to say like alcoholism is strictly genetic. It's certainly a factor, but it's not the only thing that is a key indicator of alcoholism in your life. So if you're listening to this and like you think you're an alcoholic, but you're like, oh, no one in my family is an alcoholic. Like if you're drinking against your will and like you can't do anything you reasonably set your mind to, because that's probably what alcoholism is, in my opinion. It's drinking against your will and not being able to do the things you want to do because of the need to get drunk or the need to inundate yourself with some sort of substance. That's the way I was living. Yeah, so I was doing that, but also just as a man, right, you crave romantic attention and a romantic affection, and that was kind of a key thing that made me realize that I wasn't set out for the priesthood. No matter how much I loved the church, how much I loved the Capuchins, specifically the guys I met, they were like family to me, even though I had only known them for 2 years. But they really meant a lot to me. And to this day, if they're watching this, like, I pray you guys are doing well and that God blesses your ministry. You guys inspired me so much and taught me so many valuable life lessons. And so I thank you. Yeah. But yeah, so I met my ex-girlfriend and we started dating, and it was kind of like on and off. I would drink on and off, but when I did drink, it'd be to blackout, and I was really good at hiding it. And so it was great. The first 1.5 to 2 years, we dated for 3, was amazing, and she was a wonderful woman, and she gave me nothing but love, respect, kindness that I never received in that way. And obviously she didn't love me more than my mom or my dad or my siblings, but the way she did love me was just in this way that was like so personal and so deep that I really hadn't felt that before. And that's what hurts about a lot of this. Sorry. But yeah, so I turned 21, and obviously my 21st birthday, it went crazy. Had like 15 drinks, absolutely blackout drunk. And everyone just wrote it off like, oh, this doesn't happen often. Everyone does that on the 21st, you get like really intoxicated. But it was happening a lot more than people think. And I'm sorry if I'm laughing throughout this and like trying to smile. That's just how I deal with a lot of this difficult stuff, is by doing that. But it was kind of clearly communicated to me that this can't be a common occurrence. And there was a big fear. There was oftentimes I'd have conversations with my dad, who's always been a source of wisdom and guidance in my life. And he always hammered down the fact, like, no son of mine will be an alcoholic. Like, you're not going to be an alcoholic, Josh. And so we would drink like gentlemen together. He taught me how to drink like a gentleman, as the big book says, the big book of AA. And if you're curious about alcoholism or think you have an issue, I would highly suggest reading that, even if you don't do the 12 steps or go to meetings. I think there's a lot of wisdom in there just to help you determine whether you're an alcoholic or begin to get on the path of help you think you need. So I really suggest that. But anyway, so I lived like an extra year in hiding and trying to pull myself up by the bootstraps and get out of like pyramid scheme jobs or like working at a golf course, which I was working at. So I thought I had to provide this life for me and my girl. And I really wanted to get married to her and kind of live this like picturesque, like American dream life. I think she wanted that too. So I went back to school to Boston College. I transferred to Boston College, and we were both living at home with our parents, not at the same house, but she was living with her parents. I was living at my parents. She had an argument with her parents. She had to leave their house, get out on her own. And she wasn't necessarily in a place to where she could comfortably do that by herself. And neither was I. But we both wanted to live this life, this American dream together and get married because we did love each other. And so we purchased an apartment together. And that's when things took off. A key before that, though, I think there was a story that really sticks with me. It was the new year of 2024. We were waiting outside of a pub. The whole point, our tradition was to go to Boston because we live in New England. Was to go to Boston every New Year's Eve and kind of hang out down there. And before we were 21, we went down to Boston. We'd have like these great dates or times or whatever down there for New Year's Eve. And so I thought, you know what? It's going to be cool. We're 21 now. We can drink at a bar. I love the bars down in Boston. I'm going to go to my favorite Irish pub because I love Guinness. I love Jameson, Irish whiskey. That's kind of what I was raised on. So we went down there and we're waiting in line for like probably an hour. And there's like no cover fee, right? Everyone's saying no cover fee, come on in. And then they changed it last minute. I went to go get money. And the ATM wasn't working or something. And so I'm a quitter. And I just left. I was like, fuck this. Like, this is pointless. I'm done. And so I left. Oh, I can lock it. Okay, cool. I'm still figuring this out, by the way. So I left with her. And she was like a model of patience and virtue. And she was begging me to be like, oh, like, we'll figure something out. Like, whatever. Whoop-de-doop. But I was all pissed. My whole night was ruined. And so then I made it everyone else's problem. And I blew up. I started screaming at her. I don't remember what I said, unfortunately. And then I kept walking away and left her in the dust pretty much. And then I got in like a fight with like some lady and her friends or whoever they were in a verbal altercation because I was just so upset and I was taking my anger out on anyone who was in my path. I really said some nasty things to her and then to my girlfriend at the time. And I would walk down into the tea and I left her, but then I came back. We went back to our hotel we were staying at. I think that's where I first confessed, like, yeah, you know what? I am an alcoholic. You know what? Like, I need this to live, to be myself, which is really sad. I said some other things I'm not proud of. But we worked it out. we came to some sort of resolution. She forgave me. And then we ended up getting the apartment together because we thought we were going to work it out. We thought it would be all fine. But it wasn't. I kept drinking. We kept having fights. And a lot of things were going wrong in her life. And we also had a core group of friends. It was really her friends. I had my friends, but I spent a lot of time with her and her friends. And we'd always have a tradition of like going to one of her friends' house for dinner every week. And I was just showing up pretty much fucking drunk at those, or I wouldn't even go because I wanted to stay home and drink. And so she's like, Josh, like, you need to get help. She brought me to my first AA meeting, which is my home group now. And I just started going because I had to. For whatever reason, I just felt this compulsion to, I had to. I didn't think I was an alcoholic. I thought I was a drinker for sure. By the way, I was obsessed with getting blackout drunk and needing to have alcohol in my system to feel normal, to be myself. But I was living this kind of like double-edged life, right? And like kind of struggling with my job and quitting my job. So I really lived in that dichotomy of like my love for my girlfriend, my desire to provide this life for her, my desire to be successful financially, but also my addiction, my need to be under the influence of something. And so I kept going on and off. I didn't really take it seriously because I didn't think the 12 steps really mattered. I never really listened. I heard what everyone was saying, and the stories I heard from those people really moved me. And I was like, I kind of loved AA as a program for people who were alcoholics. I hadn't considered myself an alcoholic. And so kept doing that. And the more I kept drinking, I gave up on all the dreams and all the good things in my life. I gave up on my job. I gave up on school again. I gave up on my friends. Gave up on my family. And I finally gave up on her. I came home one night really drunk. I broke up with her. I was like, you know what? I can see I'm spiraling. I can see that, like, death or jail is this saying they say in AA. There's only one way that addiction leads if you're living in addiction, is death or jail. Which is a funny quote, because my dad is from New York, and whenever he would talk about the mafia, he grew up around a lot of those guys. We're not Italian, but he grew up around some of them. And he said that, son, the only life for those people is death or jail. Like, you may have it all, but like you'll end up in death and jail. And I thought that was a cool way to go, right? You were so loyal and so resilient to your like guys and like the code you live by that you would suffer the worst possible thing for them. That really inspired me. So I'm like, oh, you know what? That's cool. Like, I love alcohol so much. Like, it's either gonna kill me or I'm gonna end up in jail for it, which is fucked. It's just crazy. I'm sorry for my language if you're watching this. If anyone's watching this, and hopefully probably no one watches this, or maybe only one person who needs to watch this sees this and that helps them. Yeah. So I broke up with her, and it gave me a license just to get incredibly drunk every day and waste all my money on alcohol. I was just spending money on my rent and my alcohol. We kept living together for some time. Even though I broke up with her, she still did a lot of things to like care for me and look out for me. And yeah, eventually she gave up on that, as anyone would in that situation. And there was one night last October, it's 2025 now, 2024 of October 16th is my sobriety date. I was out at my favorite bar, which I'd pretty much gone to every day. Had a couple drinks, like 10 drinks, and I was having a great time. I saw like a lot of my local friends, if you will, and we're all chatting. We had a great night. We all got really drunk. We left the bar at 2 a.m. on Elm Street in Manchester, and I couldn't even stand up straight, but we were talking, and I talked to the homeless guy who was walking by, and I tapped him on the shoulder to get him involved in our conversation, because when I'm drunk, I'm like the social type drunk where I want to talk with everybody about everything, even if it's like a crazy topic or something. So I tapped the homeless guy, brought him into our conversation. That wasn't okay with him, or he was under some sort of substance too, from what I can remember. And he pulled a gun on us, and I wasn't afraid. I kind of was like shocked because I'd never had a gun pulled on me. I'd been like jumped a couple times, you know. I've been threatened with a couple of things, but I've never had a gun pulled on me. Thankfully, there was a gentleman there who we met that night who had a gun, and he de-escalated the situation and had that man removed. And so we kept walking away. One of my other buddies from that night, we walked him to his car, and then I was alone with the guy with the gun. And he was kind of saying some things that were concerning to me. He was asking me about like my sexual history and my preferences. I had communicated that I'm straight, and that I'm not interested in doing anything of that nature. And then he tried to lure me into his car, and so I just kind of like ran away. So I'm grateful that he saved my life, but also that was just another like kind of crazy experience that really solidified that like I shouldn't be drinking, or maybe next time, you know, that could have gone another way, right? I think we both know how that way could have gone, and that wouldn't have been cool. So, and no hate to the LGBTQIA community, all love to them. Love who you love, do what you want. Obviously with consent. Yeah, so I started getting sober. I started going back to AA, and actually this is probably like the most important moment of my life. That night, I was sitting alone in my car in a parking garage at 3 a.m. And I kind of had a sponsor from when I was going to AA originally that summer, trying to get sober for my girlfriend at the time. And I was just kind of disrespectful to that guy, and kind of brushed him off, but I had his number. And I was like, you know what? She's not going to pick up, even though we live together, because she's not going to put up with that bullshit anymore. And she didn't. I'm kind of glad she didn't. So I called him, and I said, hey, I have nowhere else to turn. Like, I'm donezo. I'm kaput. Like, I've lost everything. I'm puking on myself. I had puked all over my car. Extremely intoxicated. I had a gun pulled on me. I could have been assaulted or done something I wouldn't have been proud of. And so he didn't greet me with any sort of anger or disrespect. He just said, you know what, dude, like, come back to a meeting. Like, we'll get you help. And with someone who has no hope, or had no hope at that time, and hadn't, let me rephrase it this way. After a summer full of rejection from everything and everyone I loved in my life for the past couple of years, it kind of seemed like no one actually gave a shit about me in a real way. But he did, just because I was another alcoholic. So I did. I went back to a meeting that Monday. I think it was a weekend. I believe, or I'm not sure the dates or whatever. And it's kind of irrelevant. I think what's more important is I just went back to the meeting and I self-identified as an alcoholic, as someone who drinks against their own will, as someone who drinks to destruction, drinks to death or jail, and who wanted more out of life, who wanted to have hope in the good things of this earth, which there are, no matter your religion, no matter your philosophy. There's good things. Life is good. Life is so good. Just the beauty of nature is something I find beautiful. The beauty of art, beauty of music, the beauty of laughter, of comedy, beauty of friendship. I see beauty saved my life. Yeah, and so I got a job working as a maintenance tech for a local large kind of medical practice. So they had different locations. I even got my own locations and helped to build a new location. So I had all this responsibility. But I also had to go through that process of moving out with the woman I thought was the love of my life, and a woman who loved me in a way that I'd never been loved before. And I didn't navigate that the best way. I still tried to rescue that, even when she didn't want me to do that. And so that was really hard to find that acceptance of that our relationship was over, and that the wrongs I had committed were just simply too much. And if anyone's going through that right now, I think don't rush anything. Wisdom, which is patience and perseverance, has taught me that through patience and perseverance, you can accept the worst possible things and open yourself to new opportunity. And if you allow that position of surrender, that posture of acceptance to pervade your life, you'll find those things, those new opportunities. And I've got to have so many different experiences sober that I never had before when I was living in active addiction or in the mindset of needing to fill that addiction. So I really suggest that for anyone. But yeah, so I'm 11 months sober now. I'm a chip guy at my home meeting, which means that whenever someone hits a milestone in sobriety, I hand them a chip and get to recognize them in that way, which has been so rewarding. I've met so many different people through doing that. People I probably have never talked to or never will talk to again. But we just got to share that moment of gratitude, and that was really cool. Excuse me. I also have formed like a really solid friend group in AA. They're a bunch of like older guys, right? Like 50-year-old guys who I don't really have much in common with. We don't have many of the shared hobbies or political beliefs or religious beliefs. But we do have that kind of shared experience of like drinking against our own will and wanting to find a new way to live life, a new way to be open to opportunity, no matter how it comes or where it will come from. So that's really cool. And that's like the beauty of AA in my book. I have done all the 12 steps, and that was really difficult. Anyone who does the 12 steps will tell you, like, it takes a lot of time. And you don't do it perfect the first time, like you have to do it every day, right? That's actually one of the steps itself, is daily examination and daily contact with your higher power. So yeah, I got to do that. The hardest step for me was my 4th step. I'm an avoidant type of person. I always avoid the things that hurt, that cause me existential pain, especially painful memories. So I had to go through that relationship and accept all the wrongs that I did to cause it, to accept the burden and responsibility for my part, like my part in losing the very thing I thought most important. But yeah, I never got to make amends with her. other than like for her to see that like I was starting to get sober and stuff, or her friends who were also like beacons of like virtue and charity, in my opinion, in the sense that like they were so accepting of me and so loving towards me. They gave me so many different opportunities, whether that would be like dinner every week, opportunities for laughter, opportunities for friendship, opportunities for wisdom. They were always so willing to share, and so I'm very grateful if any of them are watching this. But yeah, I had lost that. And when you lose something, especially like with a do-it-all mindset that I had like grown accustomed to after being a firefighter, that I can overcome any challenge, that's very difficult. I thought I could win them back in a sort of way, especially now that like I'm on this like super powerful path of recovery. But that's not the case. Maybe, no, it's not the case. You see, that's where my mind goes, is I think, oh, maybe like 10 years from now they'll see how great I am. But yeah, so I've gotten to stay sober. I've got to share my story with so many different people, met so many different people. I got to fulfill one of my dreams of like seeing the Yankees play in Fenway Park, right on third baseline, right next to the pesky pole. I've been through a couple of relationships, different like situationships more like. I actually was in like a pretty toxic relationship in sobriety a couple months ago. But I was like able enough to love myself and love that person to say, hey, this is not working. This is not conducive. Let's just end this before, it goes and spirals. I learned that from my last relationship with my ex-girlfriend. But also, funny thing enough about that is, other than her, like I feel like every girl that I've been in a relationship with since being sober, we've ended it on like good terms in a way that like I had never been able to do before, right? Every relationship I had been in before I was sober, when they saw me in my addiction, they saw how like terrible of a human I could be. And so, right, you don't want to have a communication or a relationship with a person who's going through an addiction. And that's smart. And that's a tough thing to hear for someone who is on the other side of that, the person who is in addiction. But it's true. Like, a relationship is supposed to be about love, about providing for another person, not like financially, but like emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, right? And if you can't do that, especially in such a vulnerable place of being in a relationship with someone, you can never really regain that trust in someone. And so while that is a tough thing to hear, it's valuable to hear and to accept. But it's not something worth losing hope for. I've actually had way more opportunities for healthy, happy relationships since I've gotten sober. Yeah, so if you watched this far, I really appreciate it. Thank you for putting up with my ugly mug. And yeah, just write in the comments, and reach out if you think you have a problem, and I'll share my piece. Maybe someone else can share their piece. And we're all in this together, and hopefully this story meant something to you, and maybe I'll come back and redo this. But yeah, so God bless, and see you later. Bye.